Hi, this is Tony Mark.
And this is Russell Grether.
Welcome to the Malibu Podcast.
Malibu, 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 Malibu.
Hello, this is Tony Mark with Russell Grether.
Hello.
On the maiden voyage of the Malibu Podcast. We're already off to a bad start. We've been talking about doing this for a long time. We both love podcasts and thought it'd be fun to try doing our own versions. So we'll be talking about real estate, Malibu lifestyle, pretty much anything else we feel like talking about. And all right, so to start with, I guess we'll introduce ourselves. So Russell, why don't you tell us about you?
Sure.
You.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here.
Couldn't be happier.
We're excited to do something like this. It's been something that we've been talking about for a while, and I think that, unlike other communities, real estate in Malibu is very dynamic, and there's a lot that's been happening since the fire, and it's, the biggest thing I think for us is to be able to get current events out, information out, and that's kind of what we're looking forward to. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Ventura. I lived on a farm growing up. My parents grow lemons and avocados, and I went to boarding school up in Ojai, and then I went to Pepperdine for college. And after Pepperdine, I was going to do finance and ended up going down the real estate route, and pretty much history after that. But I was at CB for 8 years, and then I had the opportunity to become one of the founding partners of the Compass Malibu office, and then about 2 years ago, I think, we joined forces
over 2 years
and created the Mark and Grether group, and it's been great.
And I'm Tony Mark. So I've been in Malibu since about 1975. My family moved out from the city, and I got into real estate kind of unintentionally. I come from a real estate family and was just working odd jobs and started working for my father, and figured out that real estate was a great job to stay in Malibu, and it's been a great way to watch my kids grow up and stay in the area. It's been good to me. Let's see, what else are we going to talk about? Talk a little bit about Malibu, your favorite parts of living in Malibu.
Well, I think my favorite parts of living in Malibu are really just the community is great, but also, I'm a pretty outdoorsy person, and the best thing for us is to be able to go hiking after work or to go to, some of the most beautiful beaches around. And I think that even though Malibu is centrally pretty close to LA, Santa Monica, Westlake, even Ventura, you still feel like you kind of get away from it all. And I think to be able to go out and be with nature is one of my favorite things. I personally think that Point Dume and Malibu Park and Ensemble Bluffs are my favorite. We live on Malibu Park off of Morning View now, and it's a great neighborhood just right above Zuma Beach. And I'd say that those are my favorite parts about it.
I'm kind of the same. I really like being outdoors, so Malibu is pretty ideal with the beaches and the mountains, and love to be active. Show up late for work most days because I love to be active so much. Russell loves that.
Yeah, I know. The Swiss and me.
One of us has got to make this happen.
Yeah, I'll be on time. You work the night hours.
So let's see. Okay, we talked a bit about what got us into real estate. What would you say is the best part about real estate for you?
I think, for me, the most satisfying part about real estate has been able to solve problems for clients. And I remember several clients who have said, Russell, thank you so much. This is unbelievable what you've been able to do for us. Now we can retire based off the funds that you were able to deliver on selling our property. And I also like the dynamic negotiations, and there's definitely challenges, and certainly in the high end there are lots of obstacles to overcome, and sometimes you have sellers or buyers with big wallets but also big egos, and those are sometimes the most challenging people to work with. But at the end of it, I think that being recognized for professionalism and good service is definitely the most satisfying thing.
That's way better than my answer. I just like hanging out with you guys.
Yeah.
Real estate, I definitely agree with a lot of that. I mean, real estate's satisfying because we get to deal with some of the, most sophisticated people at the top of their game at whatever they do. So it's fun to get to meet the top of the business world, entertainment world, and kind of help them do the thing that they need help with, finding houses. And I consider real estate to be much more of, for at least what we do, I think of myself much more as a tour guide than like a salesman, in the sense I don't think you talk anybody into buying a $10 million house they didn't want to buy. I think that you help them figure out what they really want, what is the best fit for what they're trying to make work. And Malibu as a whole is just such an amazing lifestyle. I always feel good about that. I don't think there's really a bad decision to make in Malibu about where you're going to be. And so I like that aspect of it, getting to use what we know and grew up with and help people sort of find their place.
I think also too, part of it is for our types of real estate that we do, like you were saying, a lot of the people don't need any help deciding that they want to buy. I think you've actually said that buying in Malibu like a beach house is almost like in the category as buying like an exotic car or buying a piece of art, and that people really do want to be by the beach if they can. And there's a lot of people that live in the community, but still I think there's a lot of people that have the dream of maybe living out this way one day. That's been nice to hopefully help facilitate.
Yeah, my dad had told me that he statistically, like if you wrote a list of the things you want most in your life, material things, that owning a beach house was statistically really high on people's lists. So just across the world, that's just something that people fantasize about, want. So it's kind of amazing we live in a place that that's reality.
Mm-hmm. What do you think are our what do you think the market's going to be doing here after the fire?
I mean, what we experienced was immediately after the fire, I don't think we sold a house for 3 months, right?
I mean, the market shut down for 3 months. I was evacuated for a month.
Yeah, I was gone. I was gone for at least a month. I think I came back right after Christmas. Anyway, the market completely stopped. And then it seemed like after the fires, there was that whole other big winter mudslide that nobody really, you think, oh great, the fires are over, it's finally raining, and then all of a sudden we just got demolished with mudslides. So that was a whole other aspect of the disaster that I certainly didn't see coming, and I felt like that had a big impact on our business too. But after the sun came out and everything kind of got back to normal, seems like the last couple months particularly, we've been pretty busy. So we've seen a big increase in our volume for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see, and we know so many people who were affected by the fire personally. It's going to be interesting to see how those people decide to rebuild and what happens to the inventory levels. I think that people are still in the throes of it, so I think I would say my prediction is that there will be a big increase in inventory once people get their permits and they decide that they can't build for the budget that they were given from their insurance companies. And I think that should put some downward pressure on the pricing, but I also think that not that much has traded. I think I was digging into the statistics from the 93 fire that 20% of the lots didn't sell, or they sold and traded, which would, if you extrapolate that data, would imply that 80 to 100 lots are going to be traded from this event. But we haven't really seen that. We've maybe seen a dozen so far, and we're 10 months out from the fire.
And you think that's people just still trying to figure out where they stand with construction,
I think so.
insurance settlements?
I mean, the worst case scenario would be if they get their permits, they decide they want to attempt to rebuild, they start rebuilding, and then they run out of money, and simultaneously the market goes down at the same time. Because then they're left with a property that they've put all this equity into with less upside than if they had just sold it right after the fire. So we've been helping a lot of clients, who have decided that. And the other thing too is that a lot of these people who lost their homes, it's heartbreaking. My mother-in-law is included in that list. She lost her house out by Troutdale, by the old place. And the hardest part is none of the people who lost their houses want to be developers, but it's forcing these people to become experts in a field that they've never even considered before. And I think a lot of people are, either going to wear out, or hopefully they don't get taken advantage of by unsavory contractors, but we'll see.
Why do you think it's taking so long before people are really up and running again? I haven't seen much new construction. What was it, like something like 12 permits have been issued?
Yeah, they've only issued like 12 or 13 permits now. I think Malibu gets an unnecessary bad rap about being so hard to permit. And there are cases, without a doubt, of properties that are hard to get permits because they're asking for variances, or they're trying to get things that are outside of the local coastal program and the city of Malibu's building ordinances. But I also think that it can be done, but you have to be pragmatic about it. But I think that it takes a while to design a house. I mean, there's a lot of people that, if you gave them a blank slate, which a lot of these properties are, and tell them to design a new house, a lot of them people don't even know where to begin. So there's a lot of details that go into it. The tenants that are living in my house right now, they still haven't submitted, and they lost their home off of Fillory, and they just keep going back and forth over, various things like the width of their hallway and the height of their ceilings and small minutia of detail that just take time to work through.
And back to the original real estate question, we came out of our last office meeting with the data that the market was off by 50%, but then, we talked more about that. I definitely don't feel like the market in terms of interest has been off 50%. I think those 3 months where the market was completely on a pause really affected the data. But I mean, we've been busy. This last 3 months, we've sold quite a bit of real estate in all different areas, different types of properties, Carbon Beach to, Malibu Park, vacant land and burnouts. And it seems like there's activity possible in almost all those markets if things are priced right. But it seems like price has become a little bit more important in this new wave.
I definitely feel like before, maybe a year and a half ago, we could come out, try the high watermark pricing strategy, and if it didn't get a lot of attention after 30 days, 45 days, you could adjust the price and buyers would still come and you'd be able to sell your house for, record or at record levels. But now it seems like it's almost a binary market, I would say, in the sense that you either have properties that are selling and they're selling for good prices, or they're not selling at all. And I've always considered Malibu to have a pretty big, what I call as a floating inventory, where if it doesn't sell, the property will just sit for another year, and the owners, it's their second or third house, and they're not desperate. So I think a lot of times seasonally you see this sort of ebb and flow of inventory, which also influences the prices.
I've never seen such willingness in sellers to also get their houses more ready for market. I don't know if it's just the concierge program we've been working with Compass, or if this is just a new era of real estate where sellers are a bit more educated and maybe realistic about what it actually is going to take and how much of a difference that can make in pricing. But I've been really impressed with a lot of the new listings we've taken, how cooperative and willing people are to actually, paint, clean, even stage houses. It makes our world, a million times easier. And I wonder if that's had a bit to do with the success we've had when the market's been a bit slower in general?
I think so, because I think that it's making the listings that we take on look the best that they can.
So we were also just going to talk about, historically, like, is there a sale for you either this year or just historically that really stands out to you, something you were either really proud of or was just something special in a real estate transaction?
Yeah, I mean, I've been, for me, it's not, about the number or the price of a property. To me, it's sort of almost like the satisfaction comes from solving the riddle, so to speak. And I remember before we joined forces, I had a property that I'd worked on for 3 years. It was the old Sean Penn and Madonna lot off of Carbon Mesa, and it was just riddled with issues. There was lawsuits on title, there was a dispute from the trustee, there were $500,000 in unpaid taxes, and we had to go through and fix every single issue but still keep a buyer engaged. And it was really satisfying because at the end of the day we were able to deliver what was a record-setting price at the time. But it was more satisfying for me. It became more of a labor of love just to solve the issues for this seller, and that was really satisfying. What about you?
That was land at the time?
That was land, yeah.
Probably the two most memorable, I mean, from a outside real estate standpoint, I sold a house on Paradise Cove that was one of the mega sales at the time for like $60 million. And, that was just amazing for the sheer volume of what that sale was. Like we do the same things all the time in real estate, but you just, you make so many phone calls to people and nothing pans out. And, after a while, just the idea that something like that would even happen, you just go through the motions, but you're not really believing that you're going to call somebody and you're going to connect on a sale like that. And so just did the same things I always do. And then all of a sudden this, sale starts materializing, called the client, said, hey, there's an amazing buyer rolling through town. Would you consider selling? And, just the price went up and up and up. And it actually was one of the nicer, easier sales I've ever been involved with, because everybody was so sophisticated and, it was just, they wanted what they wanted and the seller wanted their price. And it was, I think I really prefer just focusing in on one thing and really being able to devote attention to it. So when you've got a $60 million deal on the hook, there's really nothing else that's going to get you distracted. So I love just being able to be all in on that. And that became my all-encompassing focus for about, it was quick too. It was like, I think 2 months, it closed. So that's pretty much all I did. Breathed that deal for 2 months. And then, the paycheck was amazing. And I felt like a rock star for about 6 hours, and then everybody forgot about it. But that was really cool to be involved with. That's been surpassed a couple times over now with mega sales in Malibu, but that was by far the biggest sale I've done. And then actually buying this property was probably the second most memorable thing I've done. This was actually a listing we had, and when I first got into real estate, my dad just kind of put me on the listing and said, okay, you need to take something and figure out what it means to sell a property. So take this. And this place was a disaster. It was, 6 foot high in weeds. There was all kinds of violations. And kind of like you were saying, it was like this puzzle, that I got to put together. And so I'd worked on this for about a year, but I was reporting to the owner's son. And I assumed it was sort of a similar relationship like my dad, and, that if I was working on something, I'd convey it. As it turned out, he actually wanted it for himself, and he didn't want it sold, so he never told his dad that we were doing anything. So I'd been up to the Coastal Commission weekly for a year, and they had violations about trees that had been cut down, and violations about trees that had been planted. It was like, you couldn't cut down a eucalyptus tree, but then you couldn't replant it because it was non-native, and just these crazy crossover violations that nobody had the energy to take on. But I was 24, had plenty of energy, and this was my first project, so I'd go up there all the time and meet with them, and I finally got it all figured out. And then after I figured it out, I came over one day, I was working on it, and I called the owner for extension on the listing, and he called me back and said, oh yeah, we'll take care of that. And a week went by, and 2 weeks, and I never heard from him, and the listing expired. And then I drove over here one day, and there was a sign up on the property from another real estate agent, and that was back in the day, before information was everywhere. So I ran the sign over with my car, and I called the agents. I was like, what have you listed it for? And it was like hundreds of thousands of dollars less than what we had listed it for. So I got a loan from my dad, and I was able to buy the property, and I knew how to fix all the problems because I'd spent a year figuring it out. So the owner was happy. He got the property sold. I wound up being able to buy my first piece of property in Malibu, and that was kind of my introduction to real estate. So I was pretty happy about all of it.
That's amazing. And now you run the gathering here?
Yeah, so a friend of mine is a pastor, and I've never gotten it together to actually build on this property, although I look forward to it in the near future.
I'm going to work with you on that.
Yeah.
We got to get that done.
I know a guy. But yeah, so we've had church over here on Sundays, and it's just kind of become our family community park. So we're actually going to do our charity event here in a couple of weeks to raise money for Children's Hospital of Los Angeles and help support the Malibu Triathlon, which takes up most of my mornings these days, exercising. But yeah, we're going to do a charity event over here August 17th from 1 to 5. Jumpy castles over there on the lawn, and food truck about right where we're sitting.
Nice.
Should be a great day.
And that's going to be in conjunction with the triathlon?
Yeah, so the Nautica Malibu Triathlon raises about $1 million a year for the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. So it's one of their primary goals is fundraising. So they make the money that they have set aside for the event, but then everything over their targeted goal they donate to charity. So they raise, at the last few years at least, well over $1 million they've raised each year for research. So that is what we'll be supporting, both the event, just awareness of the event, but specifically raising money for the Children's Hospital.
That's great.
So is there anything in particular, like about just the format of a podcast, that you like the idea of? I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be cool to be able to interview, notable characters in our community, and I do think that it's hard to find information that's specific to Malibu. I think that the Malibu radio with Hans Letts does a great job, but not everybody is listening to the radio, and I think that we could have a really great message and get information out there that's not.
Thank you for joining us for the first episode of the Malibu Podcast.
Malibu, Malibu, Malibu.